I have a sinus thing, and it sucks. So if I seem very lethargic or just talking very slowly, it's because of that, and because yesterday I had like this horrible migraine, and it was just bad. But happy 2015. What? 2015. So exciting. So I have read my first book of 2015. I started it in 2014 before you go, oh my god, Emma, you already finished your book? Yeah, you're making me feel bad. Which, that was a terrible impression of you, because you probably sound like queens and kings. So I'm sorry about that. But that's my go-to impression of other people. That might say something about myself. But anyway, I'm going to do a review of The Casual Vacancy by J.K. Rowling. I finished it just a couple days ago, and I really loved it. I know it sounds like I'm being sarcastic in the way I just said that, but I actually really loved it. A lot. A lot, which surprised me. So let's talk about why I loved it, and why I thought this book was so wonderful. Obviously, because this is a review, sort of. Or a gush session, really. So the thing is, I have read up to the 6th Harry Potter book. I haven't read the 7th Harry Potter book, but I've read all the other ones. And I've loved them. I've talked about how every book for me has gotten better and better, and she's just such an amazing writer. I think everyone knows that. But at the same time, I was like, well, I listened to audiobooks when I was a kid, and now I'm finally reading them, and I didn't know what to expect with this book. I had heard a lot of mixed things. I had a lot of people say I didn't like it, or they hated it, or they liked it, or they was like, about it. But, I just was completely blown away by how amazing this novel is. The thing about J.K. Rowling is she's not just good at writing masterful magical stories, she's good at writing masterful realistic stories. This story was masterful in a way that I wasn't expecting. It was wide-sweeping and beautiful and heartbreaking and heart-wrenching and very real. It was a book that really felt like I could step into the story and it would be a real place. So realistic. Saying that, if you don't know what this book is about, it is about a small town in England called Pagford, or a small village in England called Pagford. The catalyst of the story is a man named Barry, who's beloved in the community, ends up dying of an aneurysm very suddenly. He was incredibly involved, and he was a member of the parish council. That seat has been open, and basically the entire town is just fighting for it, or there's two sides fighting for it. There's the old Pagford, mostly of rich white men and their wives, who've lived there their entire lives, who basically just want it to stay the whitest, richest, not richest, but most quaint, touristy town possible. And then there's New Pagford, which involved Barry. Barry came from this poor community, this council state called the Fields, that's in Pagford technically, and he rose up from that destitution or whatever to become the man he is. And then he has this sort of confidant, Dr. Shawanda, who's this woman, doctor obviously, who is very loyal to him. And it's really interesting, this book. It feels like a giant divide. It's a divide between classes. It's a divide between the lower classes and the middle class and upper class. It's a divide between sort of old world and new world. It's a divide between teenagers and parents, and it's very, very interesting. This book goes through its third person, which is my favorite perspective, is third person, and it follows lots of different characters, and it skips around, and so you get to see lots of different characters and lots of different points of view of the situation. You get to see the teenagers, and some of the best characters were the teenagers, some of the most interesting, fascinating characters were the teenagers. I felt like they were the most enthralling to read about. The adults were too, but for different reasons, obviously. For example, my favorite character in this book, I cannot remember her name for the life of me, which is sad because she's my favorite character, but her nickname was Jolly. She's came from the Joanda family. Her parents were both doctors, and she had a very rough time. Her siblings are perfect, and she feels like she can't live up to that, and her parents feel like she's failing them, and her story was really heartbreaking and really beautiful, and I connected with it so much. Then there's a character like Fats, which ironically, he's not fat, who seems like a psychopath. He's like this crazy, sort of like mentally unstable person. His storyline was fascinating and disgusting and also redeeming at the end. It was just crazy. There were the adult characters who really kept their crap together, like Fats' mother, Tessa Wall, who had to not just deal with her son, but her husband, who has OCD, and probably the best portrayal I've ever read of OCD. Overall, though, I could gush about this book forever. it's amazing. The book deals with drug abuse. It deals with domestic abuse. It deals with gossip. It deals with sex and masturbation. It deals with crushes. It deals with friendship and family. It deals with midlife crises and marriages falling apart and, of course, death. And it's so immaculate, in my opinion. I feel like it was just very good. I mean, there's probably some people who are like, Emma needs to read more literary fiction because there are other books out there that are more immaculate or complex. But in my experience, this book was just amazing and fantastic and wonderful. And it's a book that really has stayed with me. I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about that town of Pegford and how it feels like a very real place. This book is sad, but it's sad in a really realistic way, which maybe is sadder. But this book didn't make me cry, but it definitely, because it didn't really surprise me, the ending, and I kind of was expecting it, because I knew this book was going to be realistic from the very start. I was like, okay, this feels very realistic, and I knew that the ending was going to be realistic. It doesn't have a happy ending, it has a real life ending, which isn't just happy, or it isn't just sad, it is the way it is. But overall, this book has an optimistic ending, which I love, because I feel like life is more optimistic than we make it out to seem, and sometimes books can make things, or media or whatever, can make things, like, bleaker than they are, but in life, it's a little bit more optimistic, in my opinion. This book, though, is so great, and I already had so much respect for J.K. Rowling, but I feel like it just got even higher. I feel like her experiences really came in writing this book, and the fact that she lived in a council estate and was on food stamps, and she really wrote about that really realistically. Overall, this book was just very good, and I recommend you reading. It was a great way to start off 2015 in terms of reading. I just loved it, and I want to reread it again. I just really liked it a lot. And also, the cool thing is that they're turning this into a BBC miniseries / HBO miniseries. It's coming out pretty soon, which is very exciting, which is the reason why I finally read this. I've had it forever, so yay, getting crap off my TBR. Thank you, media, for forcing us to read books that we have been putting off. But anyway, I loved it. Check it out if you haven't already. It's awesome. All right, have a wonderful day.